order at 7:30. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:33 p.m. on Wednesday, April 29th. Again, my name is Eric Naprella. I'm the second vice president on the PRNC here. I'm filling in for Philip Rosenthal tonight. Philip is out of town on vacation, taking a break. I think probably recovering from putting together and executing Spring Fling, which is a well-deserved vacation. Like I was saying when I first got on, this me filling in tonight could be a good thing or a bad thing. And put your seatbelt on. We'll get through it together here. First order of business is approval of the minutes from the meeting of March 25th. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any comments?
Who was the
Okay.
second that approved? I missed that. I'm sorry.
Was Peter, was that, sorry, who seconded the motion?
I thought I seconded it, but I don't remember who
Yep.
approved it.
No, you were the second. I just didn't see the face. Sorry. I didn't
Okay.
see it. I'm not looking up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Is anybody on from next matter is the police report? Anybody on from Richmond PD?
I do not see anyone from Richmond PD.
Okay. If they join, Edie, would you please tell me and I can interrupt where we are in the agenda and come back to that item?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you print out the agenda?
On to the president's report. Next month, we will hear from Public Works and the team handling the changes that will slow traffic and mitigate the backup at Castro and the problem of cars cutting through town to access the freeway. This might be confusing and many of the aspects overlap with possible future bike lane plans. The PRNC is communicating with Jesse from CSW and Public Works to be sure they coordinate these two efforts. Per Philip, we look forward to a time when we can focus on more varied topics than road safety and evacuation, but these projects must be both safe and effective. We are still recruiting officers and volunteers. The addition of at-large members of the board will lessen everyone's workload, as has the addition of a bookkeeper who we added recently to help out with our bookkeeping. The addition of more at-large board members allows existing officers to remain on the board alongside to work as a team to lessen the workload. In addition, large street parties and events will be brought back to a more manageable size and run in tandem with other community organizations to maximize participation and also keep things local. I also wanted to add in, I just wanted to, if you weren't able to attend Spring Fling, please make plans to stop by next year. Whether you're a child or an adult, it's a great event. There's some press about it in the newsletter we sent out a couple of weeks ago and some pictures. It was an absolutely lovely event. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the volunteers. There's a lot of work that goes into this. It was executed. It was a great event. It was a lot of fun, a lot of community members, a lot of smiling faces on children, and overall, it just was a great day. So if you weren't able to attend, please do in the future. Moving on, Margie with the treasurer's report.
Okay. We had some great money coming in this month. We had $4,700 from the Gateway Foundation. They gave it to us early because we requested it for benches and umbrellas for Maxine and benches around the History Museum. We also got $2,500 from Mechanics Bank, and we got a $500 from Pat Doran, who is going to become a lifetime member. So that was $7,500 that came in just this month. What we paid out was $150 for the design of the newsletter that just went out, and we paid $500 to the Point Richmond Music.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
What a big month. That's exciting news.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the next item, the membership report. So we currently we stayed at the same number of 206 active and paid members. We actually have one new member. So if you're with us tonight, welcome. We appreciate it. We also had a member move. So we're staying at 206. I also want to say thank you again. We continue to receive payments for memberships. We really appreciate it. We really Thank you for staying on time and making those payments as you receive those notices. And I know, as Philip has mentioned in prior meetings, we're still working through the notification system when your membership dues come due, working through some glitches on that. If you ever have any questions, please reach out to myself at the email. We can help you clarify when your dues are due. And if you have any issues, we can help troubleshoot those. So moving on to our main event, our guest speaker tonight is Jesse Marin from CSW, in regards to the Point Richmond Connectivity Project. Jesse?
Thank you, Eric, and thank you everyone for allowing us to be here this evening. Before we get started, I want to open the floor for Gail Payne from the City of Richmond, who's here with me tonight. She is the city's newest senior transportation planner, and is the city's PM on the project.
Thank you, Jesse. My apologies because I'm having video problems. And so I am a human. Jesse can vouch for me.
Yes, I
And
can.
yeah, and I just want to say how grateful I am. I'm a new employee at the City of Richmond, and this is one of my first projects. So I feel very fortunate. And this is a great project trying to improve bicycling and walking in downtown Point Richmond. And it's just beginning. So it's great timing arriving here in Richmond and working with CSW, both Jesse and as well as I think Robert Stevens, that's you here. And CSW has been working a long time in Richmond. Their office is actually on Railroad Avenue. So it's a great fit and we look forward to it. And Jesse, I pass it to you.
All right, thank you. As Gail mentioned, CSW, ST2 is technically our full name. Our office is located in Point Richmond. We used to be on the Triangle side, but we are now in the little house that's on Railroad Avenue. You may have seen our sign on the porch there. So we're pretty familiar with Point Richmond. I actually lived and worked in Point Richmond for several decades ago, and so I'm kind of a returning person to the community. And I am probably familiar to all of you from your January meeting, when I was here to do a very brief pre-introduction for this project. And we talked a little bit about what the outreach plan would be. So we're back here tonight with kind of that kicking off that first touch point for the project. So I'll kind of reintroduce what the project is doing, and then we'll open it up and hopefully have some conversation around kind of existing conditions, understandings, and opportunities. So I'm going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen, and not the screen with all your faces on it, but the screen with the presentation. So I have about 10 slides to get through that are really about the project, kind of setting the stage, and then we'll shift into, I hope, a lot of discussion and comments. And when we get into that section, Gail and I will be taking notes to make sure that we're documenting your comments. In an in-person meeting, you can see us writing those down, but I want to make sure that you know that we are taking notes as we go. So the Downtown Point Richmond Connectivity Project is really looking at the city as a whole. Let's see how I make sure I'm moving forward. And it's looking at closing this kind of key gap in the citywide bicycle network and the regional Bay Trail system, but also improving bicycle and pedestrian safety and access within downtown Point Richmond as a part of that project. So it is not the same as some of the other projects that you may have been hearing about. Eric mentioned at the beginning that next month you'll be hearing from the project team conducting the cut-through traffic reduction study. And this is also not the same as some of the improvements that are happening to the protected bikeways, the two-way protected bikeways on Cutting Boulevard. So these are all projects that are looking at Bike and Downtown Point Richmond and are happening at this time, but they are distinct projects. So we'll try to be very clear about what's in the scope for each project. And I also want to let you know and assure you that the project teams are coordinating with each other kind of behind the scenes to make sure that we're supporting each other, and that we're kind of not double doing things. But we also know that we want to make sure that you can speak to us about any of your concerns, and we'll pass those along. So the purpose of this project, as we mentioned, is to really look at kind of that link between the intersection of Girard and Richmond and the intersection of Tewksbury and Santa Fe. And how do we kind of close that gap in the bike routes that come up to those points, but then don't kind of continue through that gap. And through that process of connecting those bikeways, we want to make sure that we're thinking about pedestrian safety, we're thinking about what's happening at those bus stops, and that we're doing so in a way that engages the neighborhood, the city as a whole, businesses, community organizations to help shape those improvements. When I came to you last time, we had a little bit less funding. This project now has 1.9 million in funding for both design and construction. And that's as a result of a grant that the federal grant that the city won from the HUD Housing Incentive Pool program. That does create a sort of a federal contribution to the project, but it does also mean that contrary to what I told you at the January meeting, we do have a little bit of funding for construction. So that's something that's changed since we spoke with you last. It's also funded through the Metropolitan Transportation Commission with matching funds from the West Contra Costa Transportation Commission. So it's a mix of funding sources. But it is a project that's administered and obviously managed by the City of Richmond. As Gail mentioned, we are just beginning in earnest the community engagement and the design portion of this project. We're coming to you. Your kind of our first meeting is in this first milestone where we're looking for community perspectives on those existing conditions. What are your issues and your concerns? We are meeting with community organizations. We have an online survey that's just launched today. And at the end of the presentation, I'll have a QR code and a link to that online survey. It's also on the project website. We'll have a workshop, in-person workshop coming up on May 23rd and a walking tour on May 30th. And we have information about the date, time, and location of those at the end of our presentation and on the project website. So with all of the feedback that we hear through these different methods in this first engagement milestone, the team will kind of go up and develop some options. How can we close this gap, improve pedestrian safety, considering the budget that we have and all of the existing conditions and concerns that are out there? And we'll come back to you at the second touch point and share some options. And at that point, we'll want to hear your feedback on those options. What do you think works well? What do you think doesn't work well? What did we miss? And then we can take that feedback and come back to you at the third point with design, with a preferred concept and get your feedback on design refinements at that point. And at each of those 1, 2, 3 points, we'll have an online survey, we'll have an in-person workshop, and we'll have a walking tour where we can go, because we have a relatively small project area, we can go out and look at some places, talk about specific points. And then following that design process, we move into final design, bidding, and construction in 2027, 2028. So that's a little bit of kind of the process that we anticipate taking for this project. So where does this project come from? It really comes out of, as with any public works project, it comes out of the adopted city plans. So it reflects the ADA transition plan, it reflects the bicycle and pedestrian action plan, of course, the general plan, which is your big overall plan that sets the vision for the community. And it also comes out of the ferry to bridge to greenway plan, which is a long tongue twister and has no good short version. So I just try to say the whole thing each time. That plan was developed in 2021. So it's been a few years since that was created. But it did look at this particular gap that our project is addressing. It looked at some potential ways to bridge that gap. As you can see on the left, identifying again those two intersections or endpoints. And it looked at sort of some interim ways to close that gap and some longer term ways to close that gap. And on the next slide, I saw some people leaning in. We zoom in on that map just a little bit because we want to talk a bit about what that plan assumed and maybe a little bit about what's changed since then. So that plan talked about potentially closing this gap with sharrows or share the road signs on Washington and Park Place. And it talked about a longer term vision for a mixed use, what's called a Class 1 multi-use trail along the east side of Railroad Avenue. That plan assumed that multi-use trail could go on an easement on the BNSF property that's along the east side of Railroad Avenue. And these same ideas are also reflected in the Bicycle and Pedestrian Action Plan. But what we know now, kind of in current time, is that BNSF is not currently a willing partner in either selling property or providing an easement for that kind of a multi-use trail. So our project will need to look at other ways of approaching the closure of that gap. It might be the same route, it might be a different type of facility, but that's part of why we're coming out to the community, is to kind of understand what some perspectives are and thoughts are on that approach. As we talked about in January, there were also design plans that went along with that Ferry to Bridge to Greenway plan effort. Those plans were completed in 2020, which is in the early days of COVID. They were also completed prior to the installation of the two-way protected bikeway on Cutting Boulevard. The protected bikeway that came down along Girard had just been installed at that time. And so some conditions have changed since then, and that's why this project really needs to take a fresh look at what we know now and what our conditions are now, what the community's perspectives are, how folks are riding, how folks are using these streets. So that is a little bit of background on the project. And now, as I said, we're really coming to you to say, given that this project has an opportunity to close this bikeway gap, to think about improving pedestrian safety, comfort along that route, and ways of thinking about improving the experience of taking the bus. What do you know from your experience being Point Richmond folks that we should know about existing conditions out there? So what we're going to do over the next slides is I'm wanting to kind of guide our conversation as we talk about sort of specific areas in Point Richmond. So Point Richmond downtown's kind of a square. So we're going to look at first talk about the area up towards the north where that protected bikeway comes in at Tewksbury and Santa Fe. And we're going to kind of work our way across town until we end up looking at the area around Mechanics Bank and the Girard and Cutting intersection. So I'm hoping that we can just take each section in part. We will share a little bit on the right of each map what we've heard to date, what we heard from you in January, what we've heard in other conversations, what's been brought forward from other projects. That's just to let you know that we have heard about some concerns, but we're really here to continue to talk to you about that and hear what we might have missed from this list on the right. By no means an exhaustive list. So I want to begin by opening it up to talk about the area that's shown on the map here. Tewksbury and Santa Fe is up on the left. Tewksbury comes along, it hits Railroad and starts to come down, and we can see the beginning of Washington Avenue here as well. So the question we'd like to ask you is, what should we know about the ways that people walk, the way they bike, the way they take the bus, and where there are opportunities for improvement or routes that you would like to see considered? So I see a first item pop up in the chat.
Would you just before we jump into the Q&A,
Yeah.
I know there's various classes of bike lanes. Would you
Mhm.
mind just briefly kind of walking through what those are? Because I know
Yeah.
some are simply just paint on the ground, others are complete segregation from like vehicular traffic. I think that's kind of
Right.
and we see those around town and other areas we travel. Would you mind touching on that?
I'd be happy to touch on that. I will also ask for support from Gail because I don't always get the numbers right because they don't follow
Yeah.
what's logical for me.
Uh-huh. So, this is a great graphic to start out that discussion, is that
Mhm.
right by Santa Fe, the class 4 cycle track, two-way cycle track is where that ends there. And that's the more protected kind of bikeway that's on the south side of Tewksbury. And so there's different ways of calling it a two-way bikeway, class 4 or a cycle track. And the reason why this is important is it creates a separate space for people to bike and a separate space for people to drive. So then they just separate and can go at the same time and not have to share the space. And then east of there is, you see those green markings, and those are called sharrows, and that's a class 3 bike route. And so that's where people driving and people bicycling have to share a space. And that, because of speed differentiations and wanting to go in the same place, that does create problems. And so that's tends to happen when there's a constrained space. And so those are the two that are showing up here.
So then the other kind that you may be familiar with from other contexts is when we have on-street striped bike lanes. So there's no vertical element like a bollard or a curb or a little bump that separates the bike lane from the travel lane. But there is a designated space within the roadway for the bicyclist to travel. And then another type that I alluded to at the beginning, it's called a class 1 multi-use trail, which was what was identified in some of the other planning elements. And I see the hands coming up. Class 1 multi-use trail is sort of completely separated. It's not really a part of the roadway system. So you might think of any kind of a trail system that both bikes and people walking use that's separate from a roadway, right? Is
Like
a class
Richmond
1.
Greenway.
Yeah.
Like Richmond Greenway. Great example. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
So-
don't want to take up all the time here. I see a lot of hands coming up. I think that sorry, the last follow-on question to that was, what is safety what drives the class primarily, or is it a combination of safety and budget? Because we know certain areas downtown, there's kind of some natural traffic calming
Mhm.
in general. So, if you go into Oakland or other areas, around the Bay Area where you have significant traffic at high speeds, obviously the segregation makes sense. In some areas
Uh-huh.
where traffic is naturally calm, paint on the ground, gets the job done as well. I don't want to trump any more time, but I just kind of curious what drives that decision making as far as class decision.
Yeah, so there is some guidance around speed and volume in relation to different classes of bikeways. Um, on a project by project basis, it may have to do with those elements. It may also have to do with kind of the ages, and all ages, all comfort type of facility can be appropriate in places where you have a lot of younger riders. So you want to provide more protection. It may also have something to do with budget or the planning documents for a given community. So it is a little bit nuanced, although there is guidance out there around the elements you're speaking to.
Okay, appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
okay to start taking some questions here,
Yes, please.
other than mine. Graham, I see your hand up.
Yes. Uh, thank you, Eric. Look, my question relates to up there on Tewkesbury and Castro, where you have the bicycle walking path coming off the bridge, comes down, crosses over Tewkesbury, and then diagonally crosses over Tewkesbury again, and goes on into the village. I drive when I come into the village. I drive down Tewkesbury, which is quite a steep hill, and on several occasions, and it has a stop sign there. I absolutely agree. On several occasions, I've come down that hill, and a bicycle has shot out of that bikeway there, and in several occasions has very nearly been skittled by a car which had stopped at the stop sign and was then just accelerating across the intersection when this bike just came down the pathway and ran right across in front of it. I think that's an accident waiting to happen. And I was wondering, as part of your planning, of your traffic planning, whether it would be an idea to put some sort of double gateway thing where one gateway goes three-quarters of the way across that path, and the other on the other side it goes across three-quarters of the way across the path. So the guy on a bike would have to get off the bike, walk around those two things, and then get back onto his bike to go onto the pathway. That would stop them coming hurtling down that hill and then getting creamed by a car. And I just think that that's something that really needs to be carefully considered.
So Graham, thank you for that comment. One of the things that I want to uh, sort of maybe we think about today is that we're very early in the project. So for us we won't be necessarily be able to reply about specific design responses, like you have
Yeah.
proposed a solution. Um, so so please keep that coming. And also we're not quite at that point in the project, but so it is really helpful for us to hear about where there are issues. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding where you're speaking about. So I backed up one slide on the map. So this blue dot is right at Tewksbury and Santa Fe. You can see
That
the
is correct.
image in the upper right. Are you
Yes.
talking about further back to the left
Yes,
on this map?
where the pathway comes off the bridge and
Okay.
comes down parallel to 580, and then it crosses over Tewkesbury to go over to the hamburger place there.
Okay.
And you've got the traffic lights from Castro coming across, and coming up and down Tewkesbury, you have stop signs. Now you're coming down the hill, which would be from the western side, down to the junction there, and you can't really see the pathway coming in until you're right on top of it. And if somebody is speeding down that pathway, which they do on their bikes, you're not going to have time to stop them, even if you have already stopped at the stop sign and you're going across, because these guys will just hurtle straight across. And I've
Great.
seen that
Thank you.
on several occasions.
Okay. Thank you, Graham. And I see that James in the chat also seconded that comment. I
Thank you, James.
Yeah. Eric, do you want to call folks?
Sure. I think Bruce's
Uh,
hand was up next. Bruce?
Yes, well, first, I think it's important to remember this is part of the San Francisco Bay Trail. So it's not just for bicyclists. This is for pedestrians as well. And in that vein, as far as existing conditions go, the situation is very bad for pedestrians on Tewksbury as you go east toward Washington, across from the spot. The bus stop there needs to be improved. It's terrible. The sidewalk's like 2 feet, maybe 2.5 feet wide. There's utility poles. There's all kinds of cables. It's a bad situation. So that really needs to be widened for pedestrians. And the fence there on the private property is partly on city property. So there's more room to play with there than you might think of looking at the site. With regard to what type of trail, whether it's class 1, 2, or 3, I think the dominant consideration here is the width you have to play with. There's not room for a class 1, 2-way multi-use trail. So you've got to do your best, I think, to work with the sidewalk for pedestrians, improving that, making it safer, and to make to protect the bikeway to the best you can, given the space available. So those are my thoughts on this particular area. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. I just wanted to follow up on one thing you said. If you can see the image on the screen, when you said that fence is, I think you said was not on private property, are you referring to the fence behind the bench here shown in this image or a different fence?
I don't recognize that image. No, I'm talking about Tewksbury across the street from the spot going toward Johnny Boy's. The bus stop on the south side of Tewksbury.
Okay, you may not recognize this image because it's taken from the freeway side, but in that image is the bench right there. So that is the spot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
probably one of the worst bus stops in the city of Richmond, if not the Bay Area.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I think Gary, your hand was up next.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
So this is a question. It's before my time, but I know you made the comment earlier around BNSF and not being very collaborative about giving up any space over there. I know a long time ago, but again, before my time, maybe somebody else can chime in here, is there was negotiations to actually stop train horns in various places throughout Port Richmond that was successful. And I don't know who that was negotiated with, but is there any thoughts about however that was done? Is there some room there if we know the connections with NS and BNSF? Is that possible?
So, thinking about train horns and quiet zones in relation to BNSF would be outside of the scope of this project. That's a kind of a coordination that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do as a part of this particular project. But maybe someone else in the community knows a little bit more about what was done in the past.
Yeah, that wasn't really my question, but I wasn't trying to assume this project is going to solve the question around train horns. I'm just saying when that was done, somehow that was successfully negotiated. And the question was, I don't know who did that. This, like I said, before I came here, but
Mhm.
is there anything within that would help actually get them to move any? I don't know how far up you've gone on BNSF. A lot of these things have to do with how high you get in the organization. So if somebody else knows something more about that, it's not me.
Okay,
We're
thank you. We
we're
can.
meeting with BNSF on or we're meeting on potentially looking at quiet zones within Richmond, and so we may be meeting with BNSF on that citywide. So we'll take that under consideration. And it's a good point, is that we may have be in contact with them.
Well,
And yeah,
Yeah, a lot
on
of it has
B,
to do with who you're talking to. So yeah, no,
yeah,
it's a
that's a good
possibility.
point.
That's all. Thanks.
I can
Thank you,
offer
Gary.
something. I can offer something on BNSF. This is Bruce.
Bruce, okay.
Yeah, a number of years ago, try to get some traction in the city to negotiate with BNSF to acquire a piece of their land along
Is it funny?
along.
How was it? I'm still on it.
Okay, a piece of their land between Richmond Avenue and Tewksbury, uh, east of the parking area, perpendicular parking area on Railroad Avenue. So to create a protected bikeway east of the perpendicular parking, so the bicyclists could get off the street, out of downtown Point Richmond, off of Railroad Avenue, and have a safe area all to themselves between Richmond Avenue and Tewksbury. So if you're speaking with BNSF, that would be a subject to bring up. We did do some geometrics and things, and there's space there. I don't remember the exact width we were talking about, but there was space to create a protected bikeway completely separated from the road, giving a distance from the railroad tracks that's equivalent to that between the tracks and the apartment buildings on the western side by Roma Cafe. So I have background on that, Jesse, if that'd be helpful.
Bruce, that would be helpful. I'd like to talk to you about that further. Thank you.
Okay, Peter, I think your hand was up next.
Yeah, I put it down because this is probably too preliminary for this, but I was just talking to Sue about my wife about the fact that a lot of the issues are just the fact that bicyclists don't. And I ride a recumbent trike. I have several recumbent trikes. I love them. As a recumbent trike rider, I have to obey all traffic laws because I'm low, that kind of, I need to be seen. And I see bicyclists even on the Bay Trail, they'll just whip between people. Occasionally, some of them will use a bell or something. So I think maybe, again, I know it's preliminary, but a lot of signage trying to address the fact that we need the bicyclist to act more responsibly. I think if they did that, a lot of these other things wouldn't be as big an issue because Point Richmond is a very nice destination to bike around. I really appreciate that. You just have to be able to control the traffic better. And by traffic, I mean the bicyclists just as Graham and James was saying, just get them to obey the laws, whether that's little bicycle type speed bumps or bicycle sized stop signs or yield signs that are right there for them to see.
Mm-hmm.
There's just too many bad actors. So that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Jesse West, I think you're up next.
Am I unmuted? I'm sorry, I haven't
Yes,
done
you
this for.
are.
Okay, great. Okay, I may be speaking too soon. I know you're moving through town, but I see that that yellow line is on my block of West Richmond. And so I just want to say that whatever is done, it's hugely important that we get bicycles, dangerous bicycles, off the sidewalks around the triangle. They also go behind the bank. You're going to talk about that later. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little easier to avoid them. But a lot of us live or work downtown where we're on West Richmond, the 100 block. We're stepping out of doors right onto the sidewalk. Bruce Baird and Bruce and Brubeck tried to help me with this several years ago. There was some money for it. Bruce can speak to that. And there were for signage, and it just maybe I'm the one who dropped the ball, but it never really happened. And it's just that bike riding. I just saw it a couple days ago again. Um, it's yeah, that's all I have to say is we have to get bicycles off the sidewalks. It's against the law. People don't know that. Any signage has to be really obvious, like a bicycle with a big line through it where they actually notice it. So that's one of my concerns.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Jesse.
Jesse. Can you talk a little bit more about where in particular
Yeah, the
the hot
100,
spots?
my biggest concern is the 100 block of West Richmond.
Okay.
That's where I live, and that's where I, for years, have been jumping out of the way of bicycles on the sidewalk.
Okay. Thank you.
Honestly, I walk around Point Richmond. I don't see bicycles on the sidewalk as much on Parkway or that side of the triangle that Washington runs
Mm-hmm.
along. I don't. Maybe somebody else does. I my I see them a lot, adults and children, solo adults, um, families with kids, teenagers, everybody riding their bikes on the 100 block of West Richmond. And like I said, I think everybody knows the bikes cut behind the bank on that
Mm-hmm.
sidewalk, but you're going to speak to that later. And I don't feel my life is in danger when they do that. So I'm not,
Yeah.
as worried about that. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Edie.
I have a question about the northern side of Tewksbury because that's what we're dealing with right now is Tewksbury. Um, the north side of it, I know that along west, in fact, go back one slide. You will better see it there. I know that the I guess that would be the eastern side of Richmond is BNSF. Is the northern side of Tewksbury under the purview of Caltrans, or where is that? Because Tewksbury, one of the issues with Tewksbury is it was a very narrow street to start off with, and you're constrained by space. And even
Mm-hmm.
Bruce brought that up. Is there a way to have some kind of negotiations to widen Tewksbury so that it would allow for both a more protected bicycle path and even, dare I say, a sidewalk on the northern side of Tewksbury that would allow pedestrian access?
Mm-hmm. I see James's note that Caltrans owns the northerly intersection of Railroad and Tewksbury, and our surveyors are out this week doing a bit of research to try to pin down some of these ownership and jurisdiction questions. So I don't have the explicit answer for you, Edie, right now, but that is something that we're trying to get a little bit more clarity around.
Okay, Gary, and then we've got to move on.
Yeah, last question. Jesse just keyed up something for me because I do a lot of work out by the plunge on the tennis courts and stuff there, and this is probably outside the scope of this. We have that big problem with bicyclists coming through the tunnel and down along, and they're on the sidewalk, and so I assume that's really outside the scope of this, but it's something that is an ongoing problem for us.
Okay. And we'll
Is that
look at that
outside the scope of this, Jesse?
I think let's talk about that a little bit more when we get to that part of the map, and we can identify specifically where you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Jesse, we've got about 15 or 20 minutes left, so we kind of need to move here. Sorry, a lot of good
No,
questions,
that's okay.
a lot of good
So I'm going to
conversation.
flip through these slides. So we have talked a little bit about kind of the central portion, and I keep going out of the view, so cutting off some of the comments. So quickly, some of the comments we have heard are about walking across the top of the triangle from the Park Place side to the Washington Avenue side. We've heard that Mariposa, the coffee shop's a strong destination, so there's on weekends maybe a lot of bike traffic there. We've heard that Railroad Avenue can sometimes feel unsafe for folks at night from a security standpoint. We've heard that the parallel parking on Railroad Avenue can fill up during lunch and special events. We've heard about the sidewalk condition along Railroad Avenue, and we've heard some comments that it feels like the parking lots on the downtown side of Railroad Avenue are underutilized. And we've also heard tonight about bikes on the sidewalk along Richmond Avenue. Other thoughts on this sort of central downtown area that we haven't already covered? If not, I'm going to move on to the next map because I think we may have more to say here. So we're going to see some slides here associated with that map. If anything comes to mind for folks as I'm flipping through, feel free to raise your hand. And then we get to what I'm thinking of as sort of the south side of downtown Point Richmond. So more of West Richmond Avenue, the rail crossing there at the bottom of Railroad Avenue, the Mechanics Bank Plaza, and the way in which Sharrows kind of shift into on-street bike lanes and then connect to the protected bikeways on Upper Girard and West Cutting. We do have bus stops around that Girard and Cutting Boulevard intersection. And we know that as a part of this project, we will have to deal with bringing that rail crossing where the BNSF crossing happens here of Richmond Avenue into compliance. We've heard concerns about how bike improvements could affect walking and parking in front of Mechanics Bank. We've heard folks say that this crossing from the bulb out at the plunge over towards Mechanics Bank does not feel safe and maybe could use some modifications for sightline visibility there. And we've heard concerns from bicyclists about the visibility crossing cutting along Girard. So what else haven't we heard or should we know?
Hey, Jesse, it's Gary. If you go back at the bottom of your screen, you see the plunge on the left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the street that's coming down there, that's people coming out of the tunnel or coming up there and down into the center of town. That's the place I've talked about, that's the sidewalk. And the problem there is we have bikes coming out of the tunnel, going very, very fast, coming down that sidewalk. And they've missed me a few times. Sometimes they holler, but that's part of the issue of the sidewalk versus the bike lane.
Okay. One thing I will offer that is a part of a separate project that looks at some kind of spot improvements to some of the existing bike infrastructure. I believe there is an intention to indicate a stripe because that is a multi-use path, that wide sidewalk, to help clarify that there are two ways there, that there are people walking there. And so that is a step toward addressing awareness that there are different kinds of modes using that way. So
I think an idea of putting it down the middle would really help. Yep. Okay.
Great.
And maybe a few rumble strips to slow down the bikes coming out of the tunnel.
Okay. Since folks aren't sort of jumping in with new comments, I just want to ask, do you have any reactions or responses, support, or other opinions on the comments that are listed on the right side of the screen? Do you tend to agree, tend to disagree?
Well, I think just kind of I guess another general question. When we first started this conversation back in January, or this initial presentation, there was a design charrette that was shared. Is that still, is that going to be one of the alternatives, or is that kind of like pulled back and you're going to reapproach all of this with a few design alternatives going forward?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, we haven't gotten to that stage yet.
Okay.
So right now, so May 23rd and May 30th, we'll kind of
Hmm.
do the same presentation again in person and on foot through
Yeah.
the community. Um, Based on that, we'll develop some some options, and then
Okay.
we'll come back to you again and say, what do you think about these? You'll help us find the
Yeah.
fatal flaws in those. So,
Yeah, and I think just generally one of the conundrums here, I mean, there's always challenges with everything on how you approach and implement these. I think, the design charrette that was shared eliminated a percentage of the parking in the downtown area, and I know that was
mhm,
of concern.
mhm,
Um, I think the goal of this is to get folks out of the car and to use bikes and get on feet more. I think it's no secret that, in Point Richmond there is an aging population who just can't do that. And
mhm,
so I think, that was just kind of a shocker to a lot of the folks when you initially, or when the city and this kind of that first design charrette was shared. I think one of the ongoing issues is, car queues and the impacts if there is a lane diet here and things are constricted more, kind of what happens with the geometry of the car queues when trains are in the crossings. I
mhm,
think one of the concern, and I think we all know what's kind of unique about Point Richmond is, on a Monday night, a lot of areas with parking, it's kind of a ghost town. On Thursday,
mhm.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we just surge,
Yeah.
with a lot of cars, that parking is full. If there is parking taken away with folks who can't walk or use the bike, or folks coming into town, will that push traffic or parking rather further, into the areas with more dense housing? Um, I think you've heard these concerns before, that came
Uh-huh.
up earlier in this conversation. So I think the point of my comment is we look forward to seeing those design alternatives,
Uh-huh.
and kind of seeing, a couple different approaches about how to implement this solution.
Mm-hmm. But just so I don't forget this point as we move through this conversation, as I get to the last slide, I want to invite everyone who's been on this call today to go take the online survey, and to come to all of those events because there are different ways to share your ideas. In the survey, there's a question about where do you usually park so that we can begin to understand kind of how residents and how visitors use the available parking.
Mhm.
And so that is a question that we want more information about.
Yeah. And
You mentioned that this is really about getting people out of their cars and onto bikes. There's this idea called complete streets, and it thinks about the public right of way, that space that's not privately owned, um, and trying to shape that space to be accessible and safe for all of the modes so that regardless of where anyone is in their economic path, in their sort of health path or their age, that they have a way, an equitable way to move through the community. So it's not so much of like, you shouldn't drive. It's more, how do we make it possible for people to move through the community as best they can? So, and there is also limited space. So we have to have those conversations about the trade-offs that happen and how can we, kind of make that work. So please keep those comments coming. Yeah.
all right, I see a hand up, Edie.
So I'm looking at this and I'm wondering what parts of the bike lanes are in stone, so to speak. Because I know that you do have many moving parts, different plans all happening at the same time, hopefully working together. But there were, as Eric mentioned, discussions of possibly making those bike lanes, instead of being on South Girard, putting them onto Wine Street, putting them onto East Richmond Avenue. I guess I just kind of want to know what things are unmovable, unchangeable, not going to alter based on what you already have, versus the things that we are actually able to change or able to put input on that actually could be changed.
Well, I will start by saying that we do have a specific budget for this project, and it is a limited budget. And so a part of the project will be an exercise in priority. Like, how do we make that money do the most and the best? So that's also a part of the conversation that we haven't really explicitly talked about today. Within the project boundaries, I don't know that anything is set in stone. I mean, there is a limit on what can be funded. There's sort of a limit on what can be tolerated. It seems unlikely that those bikeways that are sort of at the edges, like up Girard and out West Cutting, and Tewksbury, west of Santa Fe, I think it's unlikely that those will be changed as a part of this project. But really, we're here to hear from you and understand between those points, how can we best serve all of the communities and all of the modes and the users? So, we can't promise the sky, but we also really want to hear all of the ideas that you have. So I hope that's a good enough answer for that question. Yeah.
I'm curious back on the parking. Is there a place within downtown Point Richmond that you're having trouble parking and at specific times?
Well, I think the point I was there was a preliminary design, I'll call it a preliminary design concept that was shared, I think for discussion purposes only back in January, and kind of on the screen here in front of Mechanics Bank, it changed the geometry from angled to parallel, and the same thing on Girard. And so by way of doing that, it eliminated, and also in front of the plunge, it eliminated a certain percentage of that parking. That design also showed on Railroad, I think the same thing, changing it from, kind of perpendicular to parallel. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing on a Monday night, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, when folks come into town, there's a lot of times it's hard to find parking downtown already. And
So I
so I
just want to,
think, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify, are these the drawings that you were speaking of that change the parking?
Yeah, there
So
was.
yeah, so I just want to say, to reiterate, these particular plans were in the presentation in January.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they are the plans that were developed in 2021 as a part of that Ferry to Bridge to Greenway plan. So again, we are really at the beginning of this process, and we really want to take a fresh look.
I believe
Yeah.
that the plan that Eric's referring to, is the one that is on the right-hand side, third one down, where it's showing parallel parking
Mm-hmm.
along Girard as opposed to diagonal parking. And
Okay.
same thing with East Richmond or West Richmond.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that we all, we're on the same page there. Okay.
And when that was done, the neighborhood was not consulted about that beforehand. We sort of found out about it as it was a fait accompli. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We understand that. And that is a part of what has driven the outreach strategy for this project, is to make sure that we're very, clear about what the project can and can't do, and that we are speaking with you at every point along the way. And we're getting this kind of broad and documentable input into the project, so that the design that comes out of this project is a reflection of the community's perspectives, and the realities of what's out there, and design and engineering guidance, and the funding that we have as well.
yeah. All right, I see one more hand up. Jesse West. Jesse, you're on mute.
Thank you. I had trouble getting to the unmute from watching that screen. I just want to add that a lot of people, you talk about streets being accessible for everybody, blah, blah. I get that. That's great. Okay. But I don't want it to get lost in this discussion about parallel parking versus angle parking. It's not just a matter of spaces, it's a matter of accommodating the people who come to the plunge often several times a week with walkers and with wheelchairs and with attendants and take classes, go in there and use the chair that lowers them into the pool, use the walking lane. Even if they're able-bodied, often they take really important exercise classes that keep them healthy. So I don't want it to become impossible for those people to use the plunge because they can't find parking. And that's, to me, a really important reason not to take away more parking. So that's it.
Thank you for that perspective. Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure it's noted that we're capturing the comments that are also in the chat, and I also recommend that we have a limited time with you. The slide that is on the screen at the moment has QR codes that you can scan at the moment. It also has links to the project website and has the date, time, and location of upcoming events. I would like to invite folks to visit the project website, which I'm hoping that we can share this presentation with you and have this disseminated to your membership. I know that Philip has got a lot of this information into your next print newsletter, but that may or may not be able to hit folks' mailboxes before May 23rd, May 30th. So we would like to invite you to get the word out to your neighbors and your friends in the Point and in Richmond before then, so that folks can participate.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to give this presentation and answering our questions and also fielding our comments and concerns. Before we let you go here, kind of last call, any other questions or comments before we move on? I don't see any hands. I'll do one last scroll here. Awesome. We're clear.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you all in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Appreciate
It
it.
was great to meet you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you for being so involved.
Absolutely. Good luck in your new position.
Thank you.
Yep. Take
Bye.
care. All right. Before we move on to community briefs, I just want to circle back. Anybody from RPD on the call? Edie, do you know if anybody joined?
No, no one has joined.
Okay. So let's go to community briefs. Maskers. Anyone from Maskers?
Yes, I have just a brief description of what Maskers is up to lately. The latest play is Gods of Comedy. It opened April 24th. It'll run until May 17th. General admission, $35. Students and seniors, $30. In case you don't know what a theater is, it's at 105 Park Place. And please, when you're watching the play, pay particular attention to the tree on the stage. I help build sets, so anyway, it's a wonderful play.
Very cool. Thank you. Richmond RNCC, Richmond Neighborhood Coordinating Council. Any report on that?
Yes. Give me a moment to call up Cordell's. He gave me a nice little thing here. And oops, here it is. Okay, he said They had 12 people on Zoom and 33 people in attendance altogether. Jerry Gurul and Mubin Cotter from finance presented the budget. City staff always presents the reports there. That's actually interesting to go to, just to hear from the city staff. No old business. For new business, he always recommends people, and he said he thought they should either invite Caltrans or BNSF Railroad to present, and that's it. And the next one is May 11th at 7 p.m. in the chambers. So,
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Gary, Richmond tennis.
A couple of, excuse me, a couple of those. One thing, just so you're aware, is coming up, not for a while, but it's going to be in August. There's going to be a big 100-year celebration of the plunge opening. It's going to be August 15th, and we'll be getting more information on that as time goes on, but just to let you know that that's coming down the road. The other thing, a bunch of you that may walk around the back of the plunge and the garden area know that the little library was destroyed and torched. And I just want to pass along, we had thanks from Kevin, and I don't have his last name, Phil has it to them but Kevin actually donated his time to building the new library. So and that's been done. So that's complete. And also Amy Van Cleve, who did all the painting on the little library, is also doing that. So they both volunteer their time, and we talked to the Parks and Landscaping folks, and the base for the new one is going to be a lot more solid than the old one was. But the biggest thing was just celebrating two people that came up and said, "We're willing to build a new one, and we're going to make it work, and we'll build the best support we can that it can't get destroyed." This last one was just, why somebody would do that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But so you'll hear that pretty soon. It's actually been built already, and now it's in the final stages. And so we'll see it back up down there maybe next few weeks or the month. That's coming attraction.
Great. Appreciate it. Thank you. Graham.
Yes, Eric, thank you. The Red Oak Victory. Look, our biggest news is that the city has just funded a study to be done for moving the Red Oak Victory, which has been a bit of a gypsy over the last 10 years, to a permanent mooring outside the Rosie the Riveter Museum. Now, this is just to do a feasibility study. But if that can be done, if the feasibility study has found it's worked, and nobody's thought about the money as yet, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot, that would be a natural way to sort of bring the Red Oak Victory home to the museum, to the ladies that built it. And so we're all very excited about that because, as I say, since I've known the ROV, it's been in three mooring places, and to get it to into a final home there with the Rosie the Riveter Museum would be absolutely great.
That's great.
Secondly, upcoming events, we have our usual pancake breakfast on Mother's Day. $20 for adults, $5 for kids under 8. If it's a nice day, please come along because we have a spectacular view over the bay. And then we have Father's Day as well. So those are the two next major events coming up on the ROV. And the other thing are movie nights. They've been revolving around movies by Alfred Hitchcock. Which is a Thursday. We have Vertigo with James Stewart and Kim Novak, and of course that was filmed in San Francisco. So it's a great old movie. Just come along, $10, and then our annual classic of Casablanca, which is always a great movie, and it's always a great night of entertainment. We have sort of raffles and so on. So please join us for those events, and we are open on Saturdays and Sundays, 10 until 4. Thank you.
Graham, can you repeat the date of Casablanca?
Yeah.
Just so you know, when you turn your
Yes,
way
yes,
your head
sure,
away from
sure.
the microphone, it
I'm
doesn't say.
shocked to say it's the 18th of June.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Graham. Women's West Side.
Hi, this is Julie. And just last Tuesday, we had our meeting. And this coming Tuesday, we're having our next meeting. And I'm sorry, this past Tuesday, we did a cleanup of the gardens, the mutual gardens, and they look great. So if you get down there, the map garden got cleaned up really well. So, and we've restrung the vine up over the map. So that looks great. So if you're downtown, take a look. Our membership has increased to 41, and we hope to continue to increase it. We had a lot of interest at Spring Fling, and we've been reaching out to the people that left their particulars. And we're having this coming Tuesday our one of our two fundraisers at the bingo at the Memorial Church, the Methodist Church downtown, and that'll happen at lunchtime. Lastly, we did have our elections, and we have 3 new board members, which will serve starting in September for 2-year terms. The new president will be Cheryl Willis, and there's a first VP, Wendy Hallett, and the second VP is Michelle George. And that completes my report.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Next up, Peter, are you winning at ping pong?
Of course, I'm always winning at ping pong.
Okay.
But actually, to that point, we've had some younger people show up, including this young fellow from Nepal. Well, young, he's in his 20s, and he was a Nepalese champion ping pong player, and I managed to beat him 2 out of 5 games, so I thought that was really good. And we had another young couple in, again, the early 20s. They were both, well, he was very good and he was teaching his girlfriend. So, and then we have our regular cast of characters. It's very entertaining. We usually get between, I'd say, 5 and 12 people every Monday. And in fact, this young fellow, the fellow from Nepal, he liked it so much he asked me if we could play any other time, and I said, "Yeah, I'm retired. Just call me whenever you want." So we're getting together tomorrow at 5 for some ping pong at the same place, and that's open to anybody who's interested. I'm more than happy to get out there. It's a good way to get exercise. There's been a study that it actually helps slow down dementia in people with that issue. And there was a doctor who was showing that it actually helps improve folks who have MS, and he gets them to play ping pong, and their symptoms are reduced as it retrains their muscles or their nervous system. And the oldest player we have is 93, and he's actually pretty good. And he's got, I'm very jealous. He's got insane hair. So I kid him about it now and then. And then we have another player who's 90 this year, and several in their 80s. And these people, they just love coming and playing. It's a good way to get out of the house and meet new people. So anyway, Mondays, 5 o'clock, just drive up to the gate, push the button, we let you in. I buy your first drink when you're there. So
Perfect.
the rest are on you.
Perfect. Gary, I see a hand up. Question or a comment?
Yeah, hey Peter, I'm only 83, but
Oh, you're a kid.
you got me down there one time, but it conflicts with the tennis practice, but I'll try to get back down there. I was going to ask you the time, but okay, 5 o'clock you guys start, right?
Yes.
Great.
Please.
I'll be there soon.
Okay.
And congratulations on beating a champion, Peter. You should put that on a t-shirt.
Yep.
Well, I'll digress momentarily here. I actually had I work in Jack London Square, and I had a meeting on Friday, this past Friday, and they asked where I wanted to meet, and instead of, well, happy hour at 5. We actually have 3 or 4 outdoor steel ping pong tables.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, if you've ever been down there by First and Last Chance, that really old
Yes.
bar.
I used to live on my boat down there, Jack London Square.
Yeah,
So
in that little plaza, there's 3 or 4 tables that are great. Except my recommendation is get orange balls because the tables are white and the white balls are kind of hard to see.
yeah,
So I don't, maybe in a future initiative, the PRNC can look into getting a ping pong table for the public somewhere downtown because it's a lot of fun, great and eye-hand coordination, and great way to have a meeting or catch up with your friends. So
maybe we can stick one back in the plunge garden there if Gary will let us use a little space. They have
um,
outdoor tables, so yeah.
yeah, all right.
Okay, great.
Thank you for that update, Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah, we have 2 talks coming up that I'm going to be giving in May. I have a whole series of them on different groups of people in the home front in World War II. And I'll be talking about Filipinos in World War II on May 14th. That's at 2:30 in the afternoon. And then Italian Americans, and that they have a large section on Richmond on that one in World War II, and that'll be May 31st at 2:30. Both of them are free in the theater, and it would be a wonderful opportunity to combine going to a talk with seeing the museum. So, and getting a look at the waterfront all at one time.
Excellent. Thank you. We are actually a minute ahead of schedule here. Charmaine, the next item is LUDRC.
Okay, have a nice report for you today. We've been working on a project on Terrace Avenue. A new home is being built, is going to be built. So we've been reviewing the diagrams, drawings, notes, and having several meetings with neighbors as well as the owner of the property and the engineer. So tonight, I'm going to be able to summarize the outstanding issues, and we are going to finalize this project today. So it won't take but a minute. I'll go through all the outstanding issues, and then we're actually going to have a vote with the membership here today. And then we'll go from there. So let me explain some of the main issues from some of the previous meetings. One of them was the foundation of the house, and that included a retaining wall. We weren't sure how it was going to be built, and now we have the plans. There was some discussion about a tree near the property line with the neighbor. There's still discussion about a fence. There are some stairs going down to Scenic Avenue, and we needed to see a water drainage plan. So these were leftover things that we finally got to talk about last night. And for the house foundation, the house will be built on piers with a wood wall to hide the piers. It's a pretty steep slope of a hill, so they need to go into the ground with the foundation, and the hill kind of slants away from how the house is going to be, but there'll be a wall there. A lot of engineering and design work has gone into this. So we've seen, the LUDRC has seen all of the plans now, and we're okay with the house foundation and the retaining wall. In regards to the tree near the property line, the neighbor really wanted to keep the tree for privacy reasons, and it wasn't possible to be able to save the tree. But the new property owner is going to provide other trees that will be planted between the 2 properties for privacy. And both parties agreed on what needs to be done. So that got accomplished. They are planning a fence, but they haven't quite got to the point of making the actual diagrams. That is still kind of outstanding. The stairs going down to Scenic, they need to be cleaned, but they should be okay. There was a question about them because they existed as part of a retaining wall project that had been there before, but they're going to be able to utilize them. Now, the water drainage plan is kind of complex because the water is coming off the road into the property, and from there it's going on to the next road. And they have to, because of the slope of the property, they have to have proper drainage. So there was a lot of discussion from engineers about different kind of drains and how it should be done. They now have a plan. They have drawings of the drainage plan, so we were able to discuss it. So those were the main issues, and we resolved all of those issues, except we're going to approve this project with conditions. So this will be a conditional approval of Terrace Avenue new house build. And the conditions are three. One condition is that when there is a plan for the fence, they're going to need city approval. There's a lot of things going on with fences these days, and one of them is about fire. The fences have to be able to not be burned. So, and then there's other fire related issues about where the fence is going to be placed. So all we're saying as a condition is that the city will have to approve the plans. The second condition is that the north landscaping will need city approval as well. And some of that is having to do with the properties that are next to each other include the north facing landscaping. And we just want it to be a condition so that there's mutual approval between the neighbors, and also the sloping, and also, again, the fire issues about defensible space around the house. So we're just saying as a condition, the north landscaping needs city approval. And the third and last item is that we need to make sure that stormwater is maintained on site. So however the water is draining down, just to make sure that it's not interfering with other properties, it's not, it's going to a place that will be least destructive when it rains a lot. Something that I learned on this meeting last night is the property by itself, with its own bushes and trees and the way the streets are located, there's a certain way that water drains. But when you build a house on a property, the water hits the roof and it might come out in gushes, and it might be a totally different kind of drainage system once that house is built. So again, we just want to stipulate that the stormwater needs to be maintained on the site. So those three conditions give us approval of these of this project with these conditions. So what we need to do next is the homeowner needs to get a letter from Point Richmond Neighborhood Council saying that we approve of this project with these three conditions. So what we need to do tonight is we need to take a vote among the membership to make sure that you agree with what the Land Use Design Review Committee did. So I'm going to turn this over to Peter, who's done this before. And do you want to conduct the vote?
You give me too much credit for being good at this. Sue, could you mute your? Sorry, my wife is playing some music here. Okay, there you go. So it's a simple vote, right? Just
Right.
approve.
I
the.
do have, Peter, I do have a vote that can be done online, so I can launch that vote anytime you like.
Okay, well, that would be good. So it would just be whether or not to accept the LUDRC's recommendations and go ahead or not. So.
Right. And I just want to say, if anyone has any questions or wants more details, I can certainly answer offline. If there's any major question right now before we vote, you can ask me. But otherwise, if you want a lot of details, I can do it offline with you.
And please, I do want to, in the effort of accuracy, if you are a dues paid already, as in past tense, member of PRNC, please vote. And if you are not dues paid yet, please do so, and you can vote in the next one.
All right, so
We'll give a couple more minutes, a couple more seconds, 30 more seconds to finish your voting. You have a choice of approving or disapproving or abstaining to the vote to approve LUDRC's conditional recommendation to regarding the single-family home at Zero Terrace Avenue. We still have votes coming in. We're going to give it about 20 more seconds. Give it about 10 more seconds. And we're ending the poll in 3, 2, 1.
Great.
There's your results.
terrific.
All right. That's great. Charmaine, thank you for that explanation. I don't see any hands up with questions or comments. And Peter, thanks for and Edie
Hardly
for
doing anything.
navigating us through that vote there. Oh, I see a hand up, Jesse.
Okay, I got it. I just want to say, Charmaine, that was such a clear explanation. I just really appreciate it. I felt like I really understood the issues and could make a vote on real information. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Charmaine is the master at this. I mean,
Seriously,
we're
yes.
really
The secret sauce.
privileged to have her here.
All right. Appreciate that. Charmaine, you're up again. Back to part 2 of community briefs. What's going on with CERT?
Well, I'd like to tell you a few things. There's kind of a lot going on with Richmond right now. There was a presentation at the city council last night from the West Contra Costa County Fire Safe Council to talk about earthquake preparedness and fire awareness and planning. I don't know the result of that yet. I'll find out tomorrow. There's going to be an emergency radio communication exercise tomorrow morning with an earthquake scenario. So a bad earthquake will hit the Bay Area, and they will put out a description of a scenario over time, probably a matter of hours. And there will be communication, radio communication throughout the city of Richmond participating. This is put on by an it's coordinated with a community I don't know what to call it. Anyway, organization. Okay. It's called Building Emergency Area Communications Operations and Networks, which spells Beacon. So they're called BEACON. And there'll be quite a lot of people participating in that. On Saturday this week, there's going to be a community wildfire evacuation drill in El Sobrante. So many people will be involved in actually leaving their homes in the El Sobrante area. And this is put together and coordinated by the Richmond Fire Department and the West County Fire Safe Council. They have a lot of wildland over there in the east part of El Sobrante, and they really do have to be alert about fires. We have it here, but they have the mountains and they have it a lot more acreage of fire possibilities over there. And then I just want to say one more thing, getting a little more local. At Brickyard Landing, we had a meeting recently about how to evacuate your pets, and that was a success. So that's the update on safety and emergency stuff.
Very good. Charmaine, you are busy. Appreciate those updates. Well done. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next one, Point Richmond History Association.
Bonnie Jo Cullison sends her regrets. She was not able to be here tonight, so she's asked me to sort of pinch hit. So I'll do my best. We do have two really important, unusual events coming up in May. One is Charles Gerard, the Director of Port Operations for Richmond, will be speaking down at the Library Community Center. It's part of our speaker series. We've been running a whole series this year on the Richmond waterfront on various topics, and this is a capstone event for that. And that will be May the 6th, coming up very soon, at the Community Center, 139 Washington Avenue, in the library at 6:30 p.m. It's free and open to the public, and we have a very unusual opportunity to be able to hear the port director. So I think that would be an event worth attending. And then we have the annual meeting of the Point Richmond History Association. Featured speaker for that will be Greg Brock, who's spoken several times. He will be talking about the Huchium Ohlone of Richmond. And that will be Sunday, May 17th at 2 p.m. At the First Methodist Church. So both of those events, if you want to learn a lot more about Point Richmond and Richmond history, that would be a painless way of doing it.
Great. Thank you. Next up, Margie, Arts of Point Richmond. Margie, are you still on? You are. You're muted. Margie, sorry, we can't hear you. You're still muted.
There we go.
There you go.
She unmuted me. Okay, so just a couple things about Arts of Point Richmond. I don't know if you looked, but there's about 35 new posters that were just put up all around town. Wonderful, wonderful artwork. And everybody's quite busy there. We just finished Art Tag, which is a way that artists can learn to hear from somebody else and change their art and move it on. They do it 3 different times. And if anybody is a photographer, a poet, a painter, any kind of artist and want to get involved in Arts of Point Richmond, they're looking forward for new members. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Magic Lantern. Any update from Magic Lantern? Okay. How about Pram? Any update for Pram? Okay. HOA's Brickyard Cove. Any update for Mountain Brickyard? Okay, that leads us to public forum for new residents and businesses. One of the things I saw a comment pop up as we kind of transition to the community briefs from the presentation on the bike lanes. Jesse West, which I thought had a great recommendation, was asking for the barcode to the survey. How do we access it? Edie, maybe you and and I think Philip's back in a couple of days. We can send this out to the PRNC membership, to the email distribution list. I thought that was a good comment. We should get that out so folks can review it and access it and provide their comments and feedback. So that's something we'll take away from this meeting and follow up on. Any other new business?
Sorry about that. I was muted. Yes, that will absolutely go out after this meeting. We will send that out to all members that are on the newsletter.
Okay. Great. Any other comments or questions or new business? Okay. Hearing none. Any remembrance or celebrations?
Hey, Eric, it's Gary.
Hey, Gary.
I have one for David Vincent. I'm sure a number of you know him. David passed away, and we did a lot of work with him, and he's worked with a lot of us in the past. And there is a remembrance. I don't know if anybody else have the date of it, but they're actually having a remembrance for him coming up. Ah, and there is going to be remembrance of life be held at the Point San Pablo Yacht Club, 700 Cutting Avenue on May 16th at 12 p.m. So hopefully there's a good turnout. He's certainly had helped a lot of people here.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Any others? All right. Well, I think that's a wrap. It's 9:04.
You did a great job. That was my celebration. You did a good job.
Good way to
Thank you.
go. Good going,
Appreciate
Eric.
that. It's 9:04. We'll adjourn. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We really appreciate your attendance and participation in this. We have some follow-up to do and look forward to seeing you at our next meeting in May.
You did a great job. Do you have
Appreciate
any
it.
interest?
Hey.
You know, Charmaine and I are on the nominating committee for candidate nominating committee.
Eric, great job.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Take care.
Take care, everybody. Have a nice evening. Thank you again.
Take care.
Bye-bye.